Hi Divas, welcome to my YouTube channel where I talk about literally whatever I want to, but mostly books, and I have some big news. I have a microphone. This is my first time using it. I have no idea how it's gonna pan out, hopefully well, but I guess we'll see. It's gonna be a fun little surprise for both of us. Today I'm going to be doing what every single booktuber does at the end of the year, and that is ranking every single book that I have read this year. This was a pretty good reading year for me. I read 49 books, but I definitely have slowed down at the end of the year. I 100% am one of the people who binge reads through books like months at a time, and then the other couple of months of the year I just don't read at all. And because I'm an English major, sometimes it's just hard to read casually after like a super long stressful semester where you had to read a bunch of bullshit that you hated. So low-key, I think in 2026 I'm going to try and put less emphasis on like the amount of books that I read. I don't think I'm going to set a reading goal this year, and I get really insecure sometimes about the number of books that I read. I feel like 49 is kind of on the lower side of what booktubers tend to read, but I'm also trying to be a little bit less insecure about that. I mean, life is hard. Life is really, really hard, and you know, sometimes you just can't read a book. And like, while I don't particularly feel the need to explain myself, I wanted to, I guess. I don't know. Recently, I just feel like I've put so much stress on myself about reading, and I'm over it. In 2026, I'm going to be anxiety free, and that's something that I can just decide because it's a mindset thing. And so I've decided that my anxiety is not going to be a problem for me anymore. But side tangent aside, let's get into fucking ranking these books. I'm so excited. This is a video that I have been so excited to film for months. I've just been gnawing at the bars of my cage to get to the end of the year. And I know that I'm uploading this late because I'm filming this late, but whatever, it's fine. I wanted to wait until the end of the year because I thought that I would read some books on my winter break, and then I just fully didn't. All right, so without further ado, let's just get into these tiers. I'm going to start at the bottom tier, which is maybe we should burn books. These are the books that were absolute dog shit. I hated these books. I didn't understand the point of them. I didn't understand why they were written. I didn't understand why they were published. These books sucked dick and balls, and when I read them, it made me want to burn it in my backyard. And I feel like there is no other response to that book than wanting to burn it in your backyard. One tier up, we have Disappointed Me. These are the books that I just didn't love. Maybe there were some aspects that I enjoyed. Maybe it wasn't overtly terrible, but I do have mostly negative feelings towards it. Maybe it's an issue with me, maybe it's an issue with the book, but either way, I just didn't have a great reading experience with it. Next up, we have I Get It, I Respect It, based off of the iconic Vanessa Hudgens video.
It's a virus, I get it, like, I respect it, but at the same time, like, yeah, people are gonna die.
These are the books that I understand what the author's intentions are. I understand what they were going for. It just wasn't for me. I get what they're doing. I respect it. I liked it, and I saw merit in it objectively, but subjectively, it just wasn't my favorite. Clocked In, Clocked Out are for the books that just simply did their job. They showed up to work, they did good, and then they clocked out. They didn't do anything more, but they didn't do anything less. They just did what needed to be done, and they did it well. They're not going to get Employee of the Month, but they're also not going to get fired over anything. Next up, I have Dream Blunt Rotation. These are the books that I just want to have a smoke session with and just queen out with a little bit. Whether it's the books themselves that, like, if they were personified, I would want to queen out with them, or whether it's like the author that I want to queen out with because I want to pick their brain about it. I want to know what their intentions were. I have so many questions. These are books that sparked something in me. These are books that really made me think. These are books that made me ponder. Me using just a bunch of synonyms for think. I don't know if this will make sense, but to me, there are two different types of 4-star books. There are the 4-star books that you really love and enjoy, and the 4-star books that you kind of forget about. Clocked In, Clocked Out is for like the 4 stars you forget about, and Dream Blunt Rotation is for the 4 stars that you love. And then finally, at the top tier, we have Stellify these books. I learned the word stellify in one of my Chaucer classes last semester, and I don't know why, but it just became so intriguing to me, and I've made it my personal mission to bring the word back, because like it's a word that's kind of been phased out of the English language because it doesn't really matter to us anymore. It means to turn something into a star, and it was like a classic word in like a lot of mythological tales, but because we don't really have any more stories of gods turning humans into natural objects, we don't really need the word stellify. But I love the word. I think it's beautiful, and that is what inspired this top tier. I want to turn these books into stars so that everybody can see them. I love these books so deeply. These are my 5-star reads. I'm obsessed with them. And I do want to say that this is 100% going to be a subjective tier list. I'm probably going to put some crazy shit in Stellify These Books and Dream Blunt rotation that like you may not enjoy. And you know what? That is the beauty of art, is that we all love different things and we all have opinions. So without further ado, let's just fucking get into it. Tier Maker absolutely fucked the order of books that I read. So I'm not going to do this particularly in order. We're just going to do kind of whatever I feel like. You know what I mean? We're just going to go with the vibes. I am going to start off with The Hunger Games because I know that that is the first thing that I read this year. Me and my friend read and watched The Hunger Games together this year because I had watched the films but never read the books, and she had never read the books or seen the films. And I was like, Diva, you need to get on it. You would be obsessed with it. And I really wanted to read the books. And so we read the books and watched the movies together. Kind of. I didn't finish the trilogy. She did, but... So the 3 Hunger Games books that I read this year were The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Sunrise on the Reaping. I really did want to get to Mockingjay by the end of the year. I literally took it with me home on my Christmas trip, and then I just like didn't read it because I didn't really have time. So I do really want to get to Mockingjay and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes in the next year. But for now, what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to put The Hunger Games in Clocked In, Clock Out, and then Catching Fire and Sunrise on the Reaping in Dream Blunt rotation. I mean, I'm not the first person to say that like The Hunger Games are incredible. You know what I mean? I don't need to convince you to go read The Hunger Games. I'm sure you already have, and if you haven't, I'm sure you want to. Like, I know that I'm not being revolutionary when I say that these are incredible books, but like at the end of the day, these are incredible books. Also, Sunrise on the Reaping for me was especially fun because I read it before Catching Fire, and Catching Fire has that little section that basically like spoils the entirety of Haymitch's games, and since I didn't read that, I literally had no idea what I was going into. It was a lot of fun, and then obviously just like Catching Fire is fucking incredible. It's just an incredible book. Really excited to read Mockingjay, really excited to read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, just haven't gotten to them yet, unfortunately. Let's move on to the other YA books that I read this year, which I have a video about. I went back and I revisited some of my favorite YA books to kind of get me out of a reading slump, and it was somewhat effective, and I had a really good time reading them. I'm gonna put Bruiser in I Get It, I Respect It. It just had a bit too many YA tropes, cliches. There were just enough things to take me out of the book, but like overall I did enjoy it. I did like it. It just didn't do a ton for me. I had fun revisiting it, but nothing really beyond that. And I feel similarly with I'm a Genius of Unspeakable Evil and I Want to Be Your Class President. It's a fun book, but like, I don't know, you know what you're getting into whenever you read it. So I'm going to put it in, Clocked Out, because I think for what it's trying to do, it does it really well. It's pretty unserious, but it's a fun read. You know what I mean? Let's do a hard pivot into Sayaka Murata just to get her out of the way because I've talked about her a bunch on this channel. So this year I read all of Sayaka Murata's books. I read Vanishing Worlds for the first time, Convenience Store Woman and Life Ceremony for the second time, and Earthlings for the third time. With that being said, Earthlings is literally one of my favorite books of all time. It's going in to stellify these books. I literally have a tattoo of that little hedgehog Piyut on the cover. I would show you right now, but I don't want to roll up my hoodie sleeve. That's a bit too much work and I'm not willing to put in that effort. Vanishing World, I'm also going to put into stellify these books for now. I did give it 5 stars and I do stand by all of my praise that I've given it. I do think that whenever I see the criticism of it, I find it a little bit more valid. I do think that there are more things that you can critique about Murata's storytelling and her writing. But like at the end of the day, I really don't give a fuck because I just love Sayaka Murata's mind. I find her worlds to be so interesting, and I know that whenever I read a book of hers, I'm going to be obsessed with it. And with that being said, I'm going to put Convenience Store Women and Life Ceremony both in Dream Blunt rotation because while I do love them, they're not 5-star books for me, but again, I'm obsessed with them. I could talk about them for ages. I have talked about them for ages. I am going to try and even organize the tiers themselves into most to least favorite so that you can kind of see the general worst to best. All right, let's just go in order, I guess, until I decide I want to do another theme. This year I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley for the first time for one of my classes, and I absolutely loved it. It was fucking incredible. The more that I sit with it, the more that I really just want to give it 5 stars, but I do think I want to reread it before giving it 5 stars, so I'm gonna put it in Dream Blunt rotation for now. When I die, I really hope to be able to meet Mary Shelley and just queen out with her a little bit and just chat. I just want to chat with Mary Shelley, But the diva is talented. Again, I don't feel the need to be the person to be you need to read Frankenstein. It just is incredible. It just is that diva. Oh my gosh, speaking of which, I actually did just get a Frankenstein tattoo, which I'm also not going to roll up my sleeves for, but I'll insert a picture. The class that I read this for was a film and literature class, so we read Frankenstein and then watched a bunch of film adaptations of it, and I hated almost every single one because I felt like they did a complete disservice to the book, and so I was really excited when the new Frankenstein came out. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was incredible. I feel like all of the plot sacrifices that they did, all of the plot moments that they deviated from the book, actually added to the film, and I feel like tonally the new film is the most accurate to the tone of the book. So those are my opinions on the Frankenstein movie, and that is why I got a tattoo from that movie, because also with a lot of my tattoos, I like my references to be somewhat direct, but also not insanely direct. So that's the story on that. Since you guys ask. Next, I have The Golem of Brooklyn by Adam Monsbach, I want to say. This book is about a golem who in Jewish folklore is a creature that is made by a rabbi or a priest to protect the Jewish people. And then one day a high school or college art teacher gets really, really high and accidentally makes one. The golem, after learning English through an LSD fueled binge watch of Curb Your Enthusiasm, is determined to protect the Jewish people because that is what he was made for. It's a really interesting book with a lot of Jewish folklore, Jewish history. It poses questions about what Judaism looks like outside of Zionism. It's a book that doesn't particularly propose answers because it's posing questions that are really difficult to answer. And so it's asking you to ponder them rather than answer them. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting book. I really enjoyed it. And it's extremely funny also. I think that is really where this book shines, is its insane blend of comedy and really serious, dramatic, and intense themes. It's just told in such an interesting and fun way that was an absolute thrill to read. So I'm going to put this in Dream Blunt rotation. I really, really enjoyed this. I feel like Above Catching Fire is good. I like that. Next up, I have The Odyssey. I also read this for school. I read the Emily Wilson translation, and I do have to say that that translation is absolutely incredible. If you're going to read a translation of The Odyssey, read the Emily Wilson version. For that class, I think I literally wrote an entire essay just about the translation of that text because it's so easy to read, but it doesn't feel modern. It feels classic while being very easy to read in a modern language. I thought that this was a lot of fun. I'm gonna put it in, clocked out, because I mean, I wasn't biting at my cage to read the Odyssey, you know what I mean? I read it because I had to. I had a good time reading it. I liked it, but I'm just not a Greek mythology girly. This is not where my interests lie. But considering that it was kind of a book that I had to read against my will, I think all in all, I enjoyed it and I had a positive experience with it. You know what I mean? Let me just speed through the other books that I had to read for school just to get them out of the way. I had to read a novella called Bartleby the Scrivener by Herman Melville, which low-key I don't remember anything from. It's like kind of about capitalism and kind of about free will. It's a really weird and like really dry story. It was one of those stories that was like awful to read, but interesting to study. So because of that, I'm gonna put it in I get it, I respect it. I wouldn't say it like disappointed me because I already didn't really have high hopes for it. And I think that it was like an okay read, but it really didn't do anything for me. And while I did enjoy studying it, I generally found it a little bit pointless. Next, I have The Buried Giant by Kazu Ichiguro, I want to say. I feel like I'm butchering that. I really did not enjoy this book, and I'll be completely honest, I listened to this on audiobook for the most part, and so I feel like I really didn't get to digest it fully, but I don't know. I didn't like reading this. I didn't really like studying it. It was a really difficult read for me. For me, the allegories and the metaphors just didn't quite work. I understand what Ishiguro is saying, and it feels weird putting like a Pulitzer Prize winning author in like a low tier, but that doesn't mean that I think this is a bad book. I think that there is merit. I think that there is validity. I just really did not enjoy my reading experience with it. Next up, I have Melora by Yale Faber? I don't remember. I'm so sorry to the divas. This is a play based off of a classic Greek tragedy. I don't remember which one. Sorry if the camera angle just changed drastically. While I was looking for that book, I literally knocked my tripod over and I couldn't even find the book. I don't know where it is, but apparently I don't have it anymore. But anyways, it's a reimagining of this play. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. And it's set in a context of post-apartheid South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's a really interesting play. I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed studying it. I feel similarly to it as I do The Odyssey. I feel like it did its job. It did what it needed to do. If this sounds like it's in your wheelhouse, then I would check it out. But, you know, I understand if it doesn't really sound like it's in your wheelhouse, and I wouldn't particularly recommend it if it's not. Once again, I was like kind of forced to read it against my will, but like it could have been worse, you know? Next, I have Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which I also really enjoyed. I'm gonna put it in clocked out, but kind of high up on that tier. I think that specifically this translation, again, is a lot of fun. I don't remember what translation it is. It's the most modern one. It's just kind of a good little Arthurian story. Again, I'm not really interested in these kind of older classic adventure stories particularly, but I had a lot of fun with this one, and we also watched the Green Knight film, which I've been wanting to watch for forever, and I'm really happy that I watched it after reading this book because it made me understand it so much more than I would have if I didn't. I hold this book in high regards personally, but again, it's not particularly one I would like go out of my way to recommend if it is outside of your comfort zone. All right, and then the last book that I've read for school is The House of Fame by Geoffrey Chaucer, and I'm putting that in Maybe We Should Burn books. I fucking hated this book. This was the worst thing that I had to read for school easily. I was so pissed off every single time that I had to open this goddamn book. And the thing is like, I don't even really hate Chaucer like that. I kind of fucked with the Canterbury Tales, especially studying them in a different class. But my God, is The House of Fame just an absolute nightmare to get through. Book 3 does pick up a little bit, but like books 1 and 2 are the most boring, repetitive, insane things that I have ever read in my entire life. It was absolutely awful. And what made it especially worse is because it evoked such a negative reaction out of me, I ended up actually doing a lot of my projects about it, because I was so frustrated and I like wanted to get to the bottom of why the fuck it was so awful. But that made it especially worse because I was spending so much time reading this book. I like almost got what's the thing? What is it called when like you get kidnapped and then like you fall in love with your kidnapper? Stockholm syndrome. I almost got Stockholm syndrome with this book a little bit. I found myself praising it in my final essay and I almost wanted to throw up. I was like, this is awful. It's a really horrible book. I'm putting it in the bottom tier. Yeah, like it's not revolutionary to be like Chaucer low-key sucks. All right, what should I do next? I think it's only fair that I go into Gabby Hanna, right? Chaucer to Gabby Hanna. That seems like a very smooth transition to me. If you didn't catch my video about it, you definitely should. I'm very proud of that video, but I went back and I revisited both of Gabby Hanna's poetry collections. Adultolescence definitely disappointed me. Imagine me putting Adultolescence above a Pulitzer Prize winning author. Dandelion also disappointed me. I do think that it's better than Adultolescence, but like I said in my video, really not by much. And the bonus content is the best part of the books, but then you need to buy like 2-3 separate copies. You know what I mean? And the base poetry book is like such a minor step up from Adultolescence. It's actually crazy. I feel like even Dandelion has worse egregious poems than Adultolescence does, which is crazy because everybody knows the incredibly egregious poems off of Adultolescence. So yeah, both of them disappointed me, and I didn't even like really have high hopes for them to begin with. I'm gonna do Every Sweet Thing is Bitter next because it's the only book that I read that I got from Book of the Month. I have a bunch of them. Last Christmas, I got a Book of the Month subscription, so I did get a lot of books from them last year, but deadass, this was the only one that I read, and I only read it because it was like an early release and I wanted to be like exclusive. I low-key want to do like a really honest and like raw review of Book of the Month a little bit because I don't know, I feel like all of the booktubers out here are like sponsored by them, and I have my thoughts, I have my opinions, but I haven't felt like I could until I've read more of them. So if you'd be interested in that, let me know and I'll hop on those other books. There are some that like I desperately want to read for real. But anyways, Every Sweet Thing is Bitter. I liked it, but it just wasn't particularly my thing 100%. I think that it knows what it's doing and it does what it's doing well, but it just didn't 100% land for me. I found some parts to be a little bit cliche and just not super interesting, and I found the plot twist towards the end to not be extremely satisfying. This was like a very mixed read for me. There would be times where I was actively angry about some things, and then there would be other times where I was actively entertained and engulfed in this story and interested by these characters. I think that all of these characters, even if they are a little bit cliche, they are extremely strong. I'm just not super into the thriller genre, and this also feels a bit Western to me. It feels kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It feels kind of old school Western to me. I feel like that was a huge inspiration for this book, and that's just also not particularly my vibe. So I get it, I respect it. I think what it's doing well, and I feel like people out there will definitely like this more than me. But that also doesn't mean that I hated it. You know what I mean? Next, I have People from My Neighborhood by Hiromi Kawakami. This book was really good. I enjoyed this. It's a short little read. It's a fun little read. It's like kind of an interconnected short story collection about people from this neighborhood, and they're all just a bit strange. They're all a bit odd. This is a short book that I feel like you definitely need to read over time because I feel like it would have more impact that way. I think I read this in 1 or 2 days because I was like, oh, it's 120 pages. Let me just speed through it. But I really didn't get to spend a ton of time with these characters, and they really are all so unique and distinct that you really should spend your time with them and think about them and live in their world for longer than just a couple of days. So I think that I kind of read this book wrong. I would be very interested to reread it this year. Another book that I feel that way about is The Employees by Olga Ravin, which I am currently reading. So I would not be opposed to that. For now, I'm going to put it in, clocked out, because again, I did really enjoy it, but I think that it could go higher in the future, possibly. But I feel comfortable with this. I feel like this is a really nice spot for it. Next up, I have Kami Madre by, girl, I don't fucking remember. Roque Larique. Roque Larique, I think. This was a recommendation from Frankie's shelf. Frankie, if you're watching this, I love you. So many books on this list are recommendations from you. Maybe that's what we'll do next, actually. Books that I got recommended from by Frankie. But I'm sorry to report that I wasn't a huge fan of this book. I don't know what it was. I think maybe it was just a little bit too dry for me, which I don't particularly mind dry books or dry humor. This was just a book that didn't fully land. It's 2 separate stories, and I did find the first story to be a lot more interesting than the second. I don't know if I just wasn't really in the right headspace to enjoy this, or if this is just written for a specific audience that I'm not. It's a beautiful cover, and I do still have it because I would like to revisit it, and I would feel comfortable recommending it to people. I'm gonna put it in I get it, I respect it. I didn't hate it. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it wasn't for me 100%. Yeah, let me do all of the books that I read this year because of Frankie, because he really did influence a lot of my reading habits from just his recommendations and also the book club. Open Throat was a really good read. I really enjoyed it. It's a nice short read that you actually can read in a day or two, I feel like. It's from this perspective of a little gay mountain lion, and I feel like that's just what it's been sold as. It's been sold as the gay mountain lion book, which I feel like is a very interesting sell, and to a point, it's an accurate sell, but it is a lot more than that. It's a short little novella that does what it wants to do, and it does it well, and I really don't want to say more than that because there really isn't a ton of plot in this book. It's mostly just this gay little mountain lion roaming around the hills of Los Angeles, you know? He's just living that life on Dutch Cult Classic. But I do still think that it's worth a read. I think if you can find it at your local library, 100% pick it up. Come Closer is a horror story, and I don't tend to read horror stories. I read this because Frankie read the first 2 pages, and those first 2 pages are fucking banger. They are incredible. They absolutely get you hooked. And I think that while the rest of the story doesn't live up to that, it does a decent job with keeping the momentum. There's some uncomfortable racism a little bit, just some comments where I was I don't feel obsessed with this particularly. I think it's good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's good for what it is. You know what I mean? It's a demon possession story. If you want a demon possession story that's short and snappy, I think that Come Closer is a great option. Now I have A Sunny Place for Shady People, which I have to unfortunately say, really disappointed me. I was really upset after I read this. This was my first Mariana Enriquez, and it hasn't completely put me off of her. I definitely still want to read her other works because I know that she's an incredibly well-respected writer, but it definitely did turn me off a little bit. I know that people have said that, like, this is her worst short story collection. I'm willing to accept that, but unfortunately, it is the first short story collection of hers that I read, and it really disappointed me. I felt like none of the characters were vivid at all. I can't remember, like, any of them except for, like, two. Most of the stories are completely forgettable. I mean, in short story collections, you're always going to have a few that you forget, but like a majority of these I don't remember. And the ones that I do remember, I can't really recall specific details or emotions that it made me feel. Like, for example, there is a short story in Miranda July's short story collection that I absolutely love, that even though I haven't read it in 2 years and I don't really remember any of the details of it, I still remember like one specific moment, and I remember how I felt reading that moment. And I feel like that is a testament to the power of literature. And I feel like with most short story collections that I read, there is just that one story or like those couple of stories that stick with me. It's there in Life Ceremony, and it's there in a lot of the other short story collections that I read this year, but it's not in A Sunny Place for Shady People. I did not enjoy this book. I think that maybe like 3 of the stories are worth reading, but beyond that, I don't know. I would pick up a different Mariana Enriquez book. Which book? I don't fucking know. I haven't, I can't tell you. But just something else. Do something else. Mona by another author who I'm not going to pronounce, but I'm sure is incredibly gorgeous. I enjoyed this book more than I thought I would, and more than I think Frankie did. His review of this was actually really negative. But while he was talking about it, I was like, this actually like deadass sounds like really interesting. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think that it did what it needed to do. It's a lot of just rambling philosophical musings, which for me is fun, and I enjoyed that. And I had a lot of fun just kind of going down these random rabbit holes with the author, but I also understand how that can be boring and dry and not really interesting. I do think that the last chapter is a little insane. I don't particularly know what happened, but I do think that it's kind of a fun, nihilistic ending for the book in a way. I don't know. I think that it's fun. I think that it's interesting, but it's a 4-star book that like I have critiques of and that I have kind of like forgot about over time. Then I have the 3 book club books that I read this year. I really wish that I read more, but unfortunately I only got to these 3. I'm really upset with myself, but you know, what are you gonna do? Please don't judge me. Jellyfish Have No Ears, I liked it a lot more than other people in the club did. You know, I'm gonna reorganize this a little bit. I'm gonna put Come Closer down here and Melora down here as well, I think. Because I want to put Jellyfish Have No Ears, and I get it, I respect it. Ooh, actually, hold on. Give me a second. Let me think. Yeah, okay, I'm doing some shifting. I'm gonna put all of these books in I Get It, I Respect It, and then I'm gonna throw Jellyfish Have No Ears up here. I feel more comfortable with that. Because with like Melora and the Odyssey, like they're just not for me, and that's kind of what this tier is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the books that just like weren't for me, but I still thought were good. But Jellyfish Have No Ears was completely made for me. I absolutely loved this book. I enjoyed it more than most people did. I think I really loved kind of the fragmented writing style. I really loved the weird atmosphere of it. I really enjoyed the conversations that it had around deaf culture. I found them to be really fascinating. And this is like a really small thing. I think it's like a little bit funny, but I listened to this on my drive from Texas to Utah when I moved here. and the audio quality in the U-Haul that I was driving was like really, really bad. So I was only catching I would say I was catching about like 80% of the words, which I feel like is something that she talked about in this book, is not always being able to catch everything that somebody is saying. So I feel like in a very unintentional and honestly a little bit frustrating way, I did get like a reading experience that was somewhat adjacent to the authors. I feel like really hesitant to say that because like obviously it wasn't, but I hope that you understand what I mean by that. All that goes to say is I really enjoyed this book. I found it a lot more enjoyable and interesting than most people. I think that it is kind of an average book that, depending on how you walk into it, you could give it like 4 stars or 2 stars. You know what I mean? Like, you really could just go either way with it. I feel like it just kind of depends on your mindset, because whatever critiques you can give to the book are valid, but also I feel like the praises you can give to the book are valid. So it just depends on your personal opinion. Guys, I'm the first person to explain how opinions work. Anyways, next we have The Seas by Samantha Hunt. I really, really enjoyed this book. I'm gonna put it there. I feel comfortable with that. I low-key don't remember any specific plot details that aren't spoilers, so I'm not really going to give you a summary of this book. Instead, I'm going to tell you how it made me feel, because I'm a pretentious English major. This book has just such an interesting and captivating dark atmosphere that I really haven't read anything like it. I feel like this specific cover does a very good job at illustrating the vibes of this book, and it really illustrates the feeling that you get when you read this book. It's mostly dark and a little uncomfortable, but there are these beautiful colors that seem to shine through, even if they are a bit drab or cool, if you will. It's a very fascinating read. It's a very interesting read. I loved it. I found it to be really interesting. I don't know if it's for everybody, but I think it's an extremely high quality book that is definitely worth checking out. And then I have Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin, which I am going to put in I get it, I respect it, specifically because I feel like after hearing the conversation of other people's opinions of this book, I respected it a lot more. But I was definitely one of the most outspoken people about not liking this book. It didn't resonate with me. It didn't connect with me. I felt like it was too fevery of a dream, if that makes sense. It just didn't work for me. However, I think that it is a book that low-key needs to be reread multiple times, which is completely doable. It's a very short book with very small pages and big font. So it's an absolute breeze to get through. So you very well could reread it, but I just didn't particularly have any interest to reread it after I read it. And even after the conversations that I heard around it, I didn't really have the need, or I didn't feel the need to reread it. All right, next up I have When Harry Met Sally by Tamar Jeffers McDaniel? Tamar Jeffers McDonald, my bad. That's what I thought it was, but then I was like, surely it's not McDonald. This is an analysis of When Harry Met Sally, of its themes, of its filmmaking techniques, the films that inspired it, and the films that it inspired. And I am low-key gonna put this in disappointed me because, okay, here's the thing. I love When Harry Met Sally. When Harry Met Sally is my favorite movie of all time. I also have it tattooed. I own the screenplay by Nora Ephron. I am obsessed with this movie, which is why I was so excited to read the analysis of it, because I had heard pretty good things about it, and I just don't think that it was for me. I think that if you are a film student, you would get a lot more out of that book than I would, even if you didn't love When Harry Met Sally as much as I did. It definitely is just really good, solid book, wrong audience member. I was expecting a more thematic conversation about the movie, and I was also expecting more conversation around the films that it inspired. But what we got was just like a lot of like, this is what inspired the film, which I understand, but like, I haven't watched those films. They talk a lot about Woody Allen, and I haven't seen a Woody Allen movie because why would I? So I'm just reading this book of a movie that I love being compared so much to like Woody Allen films, which again, I think is fine for a film analysis class type of setting. So I think for me personally, because I didn't read this for school, I read this in my own time. This was a personal interest thing. And it wasn't for me, unfortunately. So I do have to say that it disappointed me. God, I need to speed run through these. I have to leave for class in like 40 minutes. Fuck me. All right. I have a Psalm for the Wild Built, which I'm also going to put in disappointed me. I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. I think that I could put it in I Get It, I Respect It, but I'm not going to. Actually, you know what? I will. I will put it in I Get It, I Respect It, because I do understand what it's trying to do, and I would be interested in reading the second book, which I think, okay, well, here's my issue with the Psalm for the Wild Built first. I think that the first book is too reliant on the main monk character, who I do not find to be an interesting character. I do not find their journey to be particularly interesting. I find the most interesting part of the story to be the robot and the conversations that the robot and the monk have about humanity, which unfortunately is a very small part of this book, but I'm sure is a larger part in later books. This just took a little bit too long to get started, which is kind of an issue because it's a very short book. I want to say that it's like 170 pages. So yeah, I wasn't obsessed with it. I wasn't a huge fan. And again, I'd be interested in reading the other ones, but the first one didn't successfully hook me enough to want to go out of my way to read those. Next up, I have The Sluts by Dennis Cooper, which I will be putting in Dream Blunt rotation, which I understand is crazy, but I find this book to be so interesting. I think that I've said it before that this is a very provocative book, and I love provocative literature, but I also feel like obviously it's not for everybody. When artists push the boundaries, it's not meant to make everybody feel comfortable, but I also think that we should respect the people who don't want to participate in that art. So all I'll say about this book is that it is really dark. It is really disturbing. I think that it's kind of best to go in knowing very little. There's a bunch of twists and turns where it does get to a point where it feels a little bit exhausting because you truly don't know what's real and what's fake. But I also think that it has some very interesting commentary about true crime that's absolutely ahead of its time, and some very interesting commentary about queer culture. And I think that it's important that we read stories like this kind of set while being gay was still as taboo and underground and shamed as it was. While in 2026, queer people do struggle a lot, we have to admit that, like, we have it really nice compared to queer people in the 2000s, in the 70s, and the 80s, you know what I mean? And I think that it's really important to read queer stories from that generation of artists. So anyways, all that goes to say, I enjoyed The Sluts. I really liked it. I would love to queen out with Dennis Cooper. But I also completely understand that it is not for everybody. Another book that I loved that is certainly not for everybody is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I absolutely loved this book. It took me fucking forever to finish it. I think it took me like months, but I think that it was absolutely worth it. Is it slow? Yes. Is it a bit tedious? Yes. Is it really long? Yes. But I don't know. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a challenging book, but not all books that you read have to be easy to read. You know what I mean? I really like what she did with the whole writing style in Peter's chapter. I really hope that I'm not getting the brothers confused, because there's Peter and then there's Ivan, and Ivan is the chess one, right? But Peter's the one that has like a really weird writing style in his chapters. I personally love it. I find it to be really interesting. I know that a lot of people don't, but I think that it's a stylistic choice that really works for me specifically. I think that the slow storytelling of the story also really works. It's so character driven, but I feel like this is the book that made me realize that I prefer character driven stories, because I just felt so engrossed in all of these characters' lives. I found it to be really impressive. I really enjoyed it. However, I do understand that, again, it's kind of slow, it's kind of tedious, but I loved it. I would love to revisit it, even though it's literally like 100,000 pages long. Let's do the Melissa Broder books that I read this year, because why the fuck not? We're going to start with Milk Fed, which I'm going to put in Stellify these books, because this is a 5-star read for me. I fucking loved it. I thought it was incredible. I've said this before, but Milk Fed is like the first book that I've read that I feel like really captured the experience of having OCD. The way that Melissa Broder writes is just so visceral that it's really hard to read her books and not experience these really intense emotions over like the smallest moments. But I also feel like that's how real life works. You do have these intense moments of anxiety over these super small, minute details, or at least that's what life living with OCD is like, you know? This character is fucking crazy, and I love her. I just love this book. I thought that it was an extremely strong Melissa Broder book. It was the first one that I read, and that led me to her other books, which were worse in my opinion, unfortunately. Death Valley I'm going to put in I get it, I respect it, because I didn't hate Death Valley. I just knew immediately from the plot summary that I wouldn't be extremely interested in it. And I think that it sold itself to me as I made my way through the book, and I think that it's an enjoyable read. But again, I just knew that it wasn't 100% going to be my thing going into it. I really only read it because Melissa Broder wrote it, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's not particularly the tea for me. And then I'm going to put the Pisces in disappointed me, because the Pisces is just weird. It's her least interesting main character to me. There is like this specific thing about Sappho and like the gaps in her poetry that I find to be extremely interesting, but even like the character kind of throws it away at the end. It feels very whatever to me. I completely see that this is a debut, and I don't really want to revisit it. And I don't know. Melissa Broder has proved to me that she has talent with Death Valley and with Milk Fed. So like her debut being my least favorite book, that's not a huge like deterrent for me. I don't like that I use the word deterrent, but it's the only word that I can think of. Next up, I have Dreamwork by Mary Oliver. This is going in Dream Blunt rotation right next to the sluts. Mary Oliver, I mean, she's just that girl. She's just that poet. I feel like if you don't like Mary Oliver's poetry, I immediately disregard your opinion on literally anything. And I feel like Dreamwork is an extremely solid collection, and it's the only collection of hers that I've read, but I'm very excited to read more. Let's do Fatale by Jean-Patrick Manchette. This is going in Maybe We Should Burn Books. I talked about it in my worst books of all time video. I hated my experience reading this. The plot was completely senseless. The characters were horrible. And while I don't particularly think that there are a ton of like wildly egregious things in this book or wildly offensive things in this book, I also genuinely cannot say one single positive thing about it. And like the more that I've sat with it, the more that I'm like, I can't think of a single positive thing. I hated my experience reading this. Maybe in another life I put it in disappointed me, but in this life I put it in maybe we should burn books, because if it wasn't a library book, I would have burned it. Let's take a break from all of this negativity and talk about, I actually think that most of these I really, really enjoyed. I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, which, I mean, you've heard about it. I'm going to put it in, clocked out, because this was a 4-star read for me that is just a little bit forgettable, honestly. I think that it does the job that it needs to do. I understand why it was so widely popular and why it was like so accessible, but I also think that that was something that I didn't love about it. I feel like because it was very accessible, it almost came off as safe some of the time, which is not a bad thing. It's just a lot of the books that push over to get that 5-star rating for me do have that extra edge, that extra experimentation to them, that I'm Glad My Mom Died just didn't, which is crazy after like saying that title out loud. What I will say, I'm so excited for the book that she has coming out this year. I cannot wait to read that. I'm so pumped. And I think that I will end up liking it a little bit more than I did this. But with that being said, I didn't hate I'm Glad My Mom Died. And I really want to like reiterate that, because I think it's a good book. I completely understand why so many people love it, why so many people resonate with it. I would recommend it easily. I think it's really, really good and really well written. All right, next up, I have Hunchback by Sao Ichikawa. Once again, I really hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this is a short little novella about the life of this disabled woman, which is a very interesting story. I don't remember exactly what she has. I think that she has some sort of muscle disorder, but she writes just very candidly about her life and about her experiences. I really don't want to tell you any of the plot that happens in this book, because I do think it's better to just go in blind. I think that this is extremely worth a read. This is a book that I read at the library, but then I ended up purchasing my own copy of it because I wanted to reread it. I wanted to annotate it. I feel like there was a lot that I missed or that I could have caught, but didn't. I think that it did its job. I think that it's a really good book. I think that it clocked in, did what it needed to do. But I think if I give it another chance, actually, I'm putting this in Dream Blunt rotation. I loved this book. I really, really did. I love it so much that I want to reread it, you know? I don't have all of it in the brain, but I want to have all of it in the brain. Similarly to The Three of Us, this was a library book that I read, but I cannot shut the fuck up about this book. Like, this is another book that I've probably talked about to an immense degree on this channel. But I just find it extremely captivating and extremely interesting. It's about this husband and wife and the wife's best friend and their relationship between each other and the insane drama that they go through. It's a very unhinged, kind of like campy book that also has things to say and has like a serious edge. It's very entertaining, but also very thought-provoking. It's everything that I want in a book, and I feel like it has kind of gone underappreciated a little bit. I love it. I highly recommend it. Harriet Tubman, Live in Concert by Bob the Drag Queen, is a very, very good book. I had a lot of fun with this. I think that you can tell while reading it, it's not written by a novel writer. I was gonna say, in a way, this is a celebrity book, but it's not like in a way. Like, this is a celebrity book, but I think it's a really good one. I think it's a really fascinating one. It has such an interesting concept. If you don't know, it's about this alternate universe where like dead historical figures are just coming back to life and like existing in our modern world. And Harriet Tubman is one of the people who comes back and enlists Darnell, this music producer, to produce her hip hop magnum opus. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of history in here. There's a lot of interesting conversations about race, about sexuality. Darnell is a really captivating character, especially in part 2. And I think that the way Harriet Tubman is written is so interesting. And I also love all of the side characters. I think that the side characters have really strong personalities on their own. I loved this. I would love to reread it. And I'm very excited to see if Bob the Drag Queen writes another book. And if she does, I would be tuned in as fuck. Next, I have All Fours by Miranda July. I'm going to put this in Clocked In, Clocked Out. This is another book that, again, I liked, but it just didn't have that extra spark to pull me over the edge into like 4.5, 5-star territory. You know what I mean? I feel like the pacing can sometimes be a little wonky. There's like 1 or 2 scenes that made me like really uncomfortable, but I think that it's a really fun book with a lot of really great conversations. It's incredibly written. I mean, Miranda July is she's just an incredible author, and it's just fun to read her writing. There's no other way to explain that than it's just fun to read her writing. I've heard great things about the audiobook. I didn't listen to the audiobook, but if that's your preferred method of reading, I've heard incredible things about this book on audio, and I'm sure it would be a really fun experience. I definitely think it's worth reading. Again, it just didn't have that extra X factor, if you will. Several people are typing did have that extra X factor for me, so I'm gonna put it in Dream Blunt rotation. I had a lot of fun with this book. It's a very easy, speedy read, which I feel like makes it so enjoyable, not only on a first read, but if you were to reread it as well. I haven't read it twice, but I want to. I feel like there are a lot of things that I kind of glossed over in my first read. Well, not a lot, a couple of things that I glossed over in my first read. And there are just some more things that I would like to understand better or just theorize on, because there are some open ends that I wish were closed a little bit. But I mean, it's just wildly entertaining. It's a book that takes place entirely over Slack messages. I mean, it's fun. It's a silly concept. A guy gets stuck in his Slack system. It's just fun. It's fun. It's silly. It's interesting, but also has like some commentary about capitalism. Whatever. I feel like you know this book. I don't need to be the one to recommend it to you. But if I am the one to recommend it to you, you should read it. It's really good. I'm going to do The Rachel Incident next just because I want to talk about it. This is one of my favorite books of all time. Another book that I will not shut the fuck up about. I am obsessed with it. I had kind of put it in like 4.5-star territory the first 2 times I read it. Have I read it 3 times or only twice? Anyways, I officially gave it 5 stars this year. Not because I think it's a perfect book, but because it's a perfect book to me. It follows Rachel and James, who are such vibrant characters, and who really bring out the best and sometimes the worst in each other. Their friendship is just so fun to read and so realistic, yet so romantic at the same time. And the situations that they find themselves in are very silly. Well, they're not silly. I want to say, okay, the one word that I would use to describe this book is chic. I think that this is an incredibly chic book. I love it. I think that the scenarios and the characters are just so fascinating, and they feel so real while also feeling a little bit romanticized, that like you kind of get the best of both worlds when it comes to literary fiction. I love this. I think it's incredible. I will not shut up about it. I I'm just obsessed with it. Let me quickly do the other 2 short story collections that I read this year because I need to wrap this fucking video up. Someone Who Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory by Raphael. Really? Hold on. Raphael Bob Waxberg, and I knew that off the top of my head. I didn't have to look at my bookshelf. This is another extremely popular book that I feel like you probably have heard of, but if you haven't, I think that it's really solid. I think that like the main sell of this book is it's a short story collection written by the creator of BoJack Horseman, and as somebody who doesn't know a lot about BoJack Horseman, that still intrigued me, and I feel like it does kind of live up to that claim. These are really funny, but also thought-provoking stories that mostly revolve around love and what it's like to love somebody. A lot of them are really funny, a lot of them can be sad, a lot of them can be a mix of both. Just like any short story collection, there are some hits and misses, but overall, it's an extremely solid collection. I really enjoyed it. And then I have Bugsy and Other Stories, which is a book that I got in one of those like blind dates with the books, and it was a very pleasant surprise for me. There are 2 stories in the book that I love, 2 stories in the book that I like, and then one that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I think I didn't really give it a fair shot because I wanted to be done with the book low-key. That's another reason why I don't want to be like so reliant on like statistics and like tracking my reading on Storygraph, because a lot of the times I'll rush to finish a book because I want to be able to say like, oh, I read it in X amount of days. But then I feel like that doesn't give the book a fair shot. So I'm gonna put this in, clocked out. I think that it's worth reading, especially if you want to support a smaller, more indie author. I think that, again, there are some stories in here, specifically Bugsy and Like and Subscribe. Those are my 2 favorite stories in this collection, and they're so interesting, and On the Inside is also pretty good. I don't know. I enjoyed this. I don't have too much to say about it other than I think that it's solid. Again, with any short story collection, there are going to be some stories that you like more than others. And that is the case here, but I think that the high points are extremely, extremely high, and the low points really aren't that low or egregious. Now, Attachments by Rainbow Rowell is a book that its lows are extremely aggressive. At best, this book is just a little boring and frustrating to read, and at worst, it's kind of offensive. There are like a couple of slurs just like dropped in at random. Doesn't make a lot of sense. I also hated the way that like the plot wrapped up. This is about a guy who works in like IT or something, who has a job of like checking emails that get flagged in the system. And there are these 2 people who he gets flagged all the time. And so like he reads their emails and their personal conversations, but he just can't bring himself to report them. So he just keeps going and just keeps reading their conversations and ends up falling in love with one of these girls, which I think conceptually is very interesting. And I think that there's a way that this story is still this like lighthearted romance that it wants to be, but is also interesting and makes sense and doesn't have the worst last chapter in a book that I've ever read in the entire world. This book really did not stick the landing for me, and that was really frustrating considering that it didn't really have much going for it to begin with. So I'm going to put it in maybe we should burn books. Yeah, I'm going to put it there, and I feel comfortable with that. And then In the Dream House, I mean, I just talked about it in my last video. I'm putting it in Stellify These Books. This book is just insane. It's unlike anything you will ever read, period. It's a memoir about Carmen Maria Machado's experience in a abusive relationship, in a queer abusive relationship, and it has a lot of interesting and difficult conversations in it, packaged in this really experimental and thought-provoking writing style. It's so hard to describe. It's really unlike anything I've ever read. I don't really give 5 stars to books on a first read, but this is one that, like, when I finished it, I was like, there's kind of no other option but for me to give it 5 stars, you know? Like, I have to. So yeah, this is my general ranking. I feel good about this. I feel confident about this. Let me see. Are there any last minute switches I want to do? No, I like this list. Yeah, so that's that. That's my tier list. Hello, clock it. This is literally a video concept that, like, I've been so excited to do for so long, and it was a lot of fun to film. So I hope that you guys enjoyed watching. I'm sorry that it's going to be up kind of in mid-January and not really at the end of the year. Again, I really thought that I would lock into more books by the end of the year, but I just feel like holding myself to statistics is not a way to enforce my love for reading, you know? So I'm going to try and stop doing it. But with that being said, I hope that you guys have an incredible 2026. Let me know what you plan on reading, what your favorite books of 2025 were. Let me know. Also, you should definitely leave a hate comment if you disagreed with any of my opinions, because give me your worst. I want to hear it all. With that being said, I literally have to get on the bus for class in 5 minutes, so I'm going to change and go to class. Peace out. I hope that you have a great night. Divas. Mwah.